Strömberg, you're the member of the Economic Science Prize Committee. This year's prize in economic sciences is awarded to Oliver Hart and Bengt Holmström for the research in contract theory. Why contract theory?
Because contract theory, first of all, when you start thinking about it, contracts are really fundamental. We see them everywhere in society. All of us are engaged in different types of contracts. Many institutions we see in society, you can also think about contracts like constitutions or property rights and those kind of things. So one thing, it's important. The second thing is that this is a theory that really has given rise to lots of other applications. So in many, many fields, not just in economics, but in law, in politics, people actually use these theories to understand what they're studying.
Is this a big area of research in economic sciences?
It's huge. I would say it's literally huge, and it really started taking off first with this classical contract theory that Bengt Holmström developed, and then with the incomplete contracting theory of Oliver Hart. Both of those strands have proven incredibly influential across social sciences.
Okay. Please give an example of the value of this type of research, if it can be more concrete.
So, well, I mentioned two examples in the press conference. One is, thinking about how to decide pay for example, for CEOs in firms. How do you balance incentive pay, which makes maybe them be more motivated, but how do you avoid bonuses and incentive pay leading to wrong decisions being made in companies? So the theory is super useful to understand that problem, not just to explain what happens, but actually help shareholders or corporate boards to design better contracts as well. The second example I mentioned was ownership. Okay, so how do we think about ownership? Does it matter who owns what? Okay, so to be very concrete, privatization, right? Does it matter whether a provider of public services is owned by the government or owned by a private contractor? And to understand this problem and the trade-offs there, this theory that Oliver Hart developed in incomplete contracting is absolutely crucial to think about that.
Has the ordinary consumer, like you and me, who sometimes sign contracts, anything to learn about this?
Yeah, well, I think we understand, for example, why when we have an insurance for our house and it burns down or we have a loss, why doesn't the insurance company cover everything? Okay, so we would like our, to be fully covered, but we usually have a deductible or a co-payment, okay, that maybe the first, whatever, loss we have to pay ourselves. And contract theory explains, for example, why that's the case, because if we were fully covered, let's say our car insurance paid for the full value of our car, well then maybe we wouldn't care about whether we locked the car or not or someone stole it, because we would anyway get a new car from the insurance company. So these two things, it's just giving us insurance, but also making sure we have the right incentives to be careful. The trade-off between these two things is something we can understand and analyze with contract theory.
Do you think the insurance companies are interested in this field of research?
I know that insurance companies are hugely interested in this type of research. Actually, a lot of the insurance companies were among the first people, real-world people who really started thinking about contract theory and how to balance insurance and incentives.
And contracts are sometimes broader than just economy and money. Is there any political lessons to be learned about this type of research?
There's actually lots of political lessons, because a lot of political institutions you can think about as contracts between the politicians and the citizens, and politicians, we believe, are very much affected by incentives. Maybe not not necessarily monetary incentives, but career incentives, right? So, for example, this theory tells us how politicians might have very different motivations at different points in their career, for example. It could also tell us, what's the best institutional setup? Should we have, power balance between a parliament and a government and a high court, or how should we organize these things? So contract theory is very applicable to all of these problems.